Hello, and welcome back to the Week in Nintendo right here on GVG. I'm your host this week, Steve Bowling, and it's been a while since we've done one of these. I've been traveling, we've had a lot of stuff going on, but we are back and we're getting back into the swing of things. And what a good week for us to return because we just had a Nintendo Direct. And I don't think it's any secret that it wasn't the best Direct. Pretty much everyone seems to universally agree that Nintendo's latest showing wasn't our favorite. But I want to dig into that a bit more. We're not going to break down the Direct like we have. We've already done that in another video on the channel. The folks that reacted, John, Daniel, and Brandon, have also shared their thoughts. And I think we're all pretty much in lockstep on how we feel about it. So I'm not going to bore you with another set of the same opinions. Instead, today, we're going to build up what we wish we had seen in the Direct. And to help me do that this week, I'm joined by none other than John. How are you, John?
Hello, Steve. I'm good, thank you. It was one of those funny directs where afterwards you process it and you go like, meh. Like we at the end of the stream we didn't really have anything to say. We were just like, it was pretty good. Like, there's stuff I want to play there. There's stuff that I'm like, oh, nice, but there's nothing that made me, lose my mind. It was just kind of known stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's like every game in the Direct was bad. And in fact, some of them were quite good. I think you and I both agree console archives as a concept is super cool. Like I'm really excited for that.
100%. That's really exciting. It's more the potential of it though. Because like Cool Borders is nice, but there's definitely more exciting games they could have launched with. But the precedent it's set is nuts. I've been playing around with that a lot. We've just put a video out, and the emulation quality is like way ahead of Sony's official PS1 emulator. And this is also coming to PS5 as well in like 2 weeks' time. So you're going to have two options of Cool Borders on PS5, the bad one and the good one. So keep supporting the good one.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to try them. I kind of started obsessing over the Pragmata demo. I've played it 7 times. But there's a lot packed in there, and have you tried the well, I know you've tried the Pragmata demo. Did you try it outside of making a video for it?
Yeah. So I to do the video, I had to play it on PS5, Switch undocked, and Switch docked, just full playthrough of all of them. And then after the video in the evening, I just did a casual undocked playthrough. So I saw a comment saying if you turn off the lens distortion, it makes the image quality better because it's quite like chunky undocked, the resolution, and it does. I think the lens distortion just doesn't really work with DLSS at that low of a resolution, but if you turn it off, it actually looks quite nice undocked. So that turned my opinion around a lot on the image quality, and I had a great time just playing it. Like the game's just so fun. I question a little bit how long that combat's gonna be interesting for, but at least for the demo period, it's really, really fun.
Yeah, and to be clear, that demo, once you learn the beats of it, it's under 10 minutes. So it's a very brief experience with the game. I'm really excited to play more of it, weirdly enough. I played it quite a few times in handheld mode because it came out during the middle of the day, so I just had my Switch on my desk while I was working on other things, and I would pick up my Joy-Con, play through it. There are 8 images you can get, and I don't know the conditions for all 8 because I don't want to look it up. But one thing, I want to ask you this, John. Have you found a fourth wall breaking cutscene in the demo?
I don't think I have.
I haven't either, and I'm gonna share this with the world because I Googled it and I couldn't find any evidence of anyone else having found it. But when I was in New York at the preview event, Capcom themselves told me there is a fourth wall breaking cutscene in the demo. They could not recall how to trigger it. The 2 reps on site said that it happens on or after your 4th playthrough of the demo, and that you can trigger this cutscene, and they couldn't remember how. I for one found a secret enemy encounter in the demo, which I have figured out how to trigger. On the elevator section, if you kill each of the 3 robots you encounter via different means, then you'll encounter a group of red robots, which are much stronger and faster than your regular enemies. And if you do that, you'll get a different drawing from Diana at the end of the demo than you get otherwise.
That's cool. That's very cool.
So there's a lot of stuff like packed away and hidden in there that's super interesting. But we're not here to talk about the Pragmata demo. I want to talk more about what we wish had been in this direct. What wasn't there, but was we did get some cool stuff. Rebirth, Pragmata. I still need to try the Stories 3 demo. But like you said, John, nothing really blew me away. So I'm going to throw it to you. What would have been like your number one pick for something you wish had been there?
Well, the closer I thought was going to go in a different direction. They said we have one more thing to show you, and then they cut to Todd Howard, and I think everybody went, oh, because it's Indiana Jones is really cool to have on there, especially because it's a game card. And Oblivion was kind of unseen because it doesn't run that well on PS5. But it's not that exciting. Like, we knew that stuff was mostly coming. I really thought it was going to end on Expedition 33 because it feels like that is just one of the most popular games right now. It won Game of the Year. It would be a really natural fit to a handheld because it's basically Paper Mario. I really thought that was coming. I think it still is coming, but it's strange because I think that would have really made the presentation have some oomph, and ending on a bunch of Bethesda games, just that wasn't the oomph.
Yeah, the what was it, a trio of Bethesda games?
Yeah, it was Fallout 4, which looked a little bit rough, weirdly, and then Indiana Jones, which looked good, and Oblivion, which looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was a weird place to end it, and I think you could have had Bethesda while still having a bit of a surprise. Like, I'm kind of shocked they didn't. I imagine Starfield has to be in the works for Switch 2, and that would have been a good one. Like, I feel like that's a high-profile game within Bethesda. I personally don't like Starfield. I tried it.
I was going to say, it'd be a cool one. I don't think you end on Starfield, though. Like, Starfield doesn't have that power.
That's fair. Yeah, I think it would be a cool announcement. I agree that maybe it's not a way to close out a direct. Expedition 33 would have been a great way to close the direct, especially given how recently it won, every award under the sun, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw one of mine out, and this is one that I actually thought was going to happen because there was a trademark update the night before the direct. I was hoping that we would get a bigger reveal of Persona 4 Revival and an announcement of Switch 2 for that game. P3R did very good on Switch 2. They just got the 60 FPS update out at the end of the year. Persona's been doing well on Switch. Like, they've had Persona 5 Royal, Tactica, all the other spin-offs of that game. I was kind of hoping that Sega would show us something of Persona 4 Revival, because we've only seen 10 seconds of gameplay, and it's just Yu Narukami running around.
It's just a teaser.
There's no actual footage.
It speaks to a broader point of this presentation where it was quite anemic on new games. It was all like, here's ports which have been around for a few years now, which they're valuable, but you need that balance of brand new stuff and old stuff, and it didn't really have that. Because I was thinking to that point that Metaphor would have been really good to have ported as well, but that doesn't really change the narrative of this presentation, which is here's all this late stuff. But yeah, Persona 4, getting a full gameplay reveal, that definitely would have added some spice.
Yeah, Metaphor I would have loved to see, but I agree with you, John, that we have kind of this issue where we're getting drips and drabs from other consoles. I think the most exciting thing about Resident Evil Requiem and Pragmata is that we're getting those day and date with the PS5 versions.
Yeah.
I think we kind of need to see more of that from the Switch 2 at this point.
We do. There was also a lack of games which really used the Switch 2. There were some cool hardware showcases for power of the system, like Rebirth and Pragmata and Resident Evil. Like, they look really nice. There were very few mouse games there, and there continue to be very few mouse games in general. Something like The Sims would have just changed that narrative. Like, taking one of the most popular PC games ever, giving it basically an uncompromised console port with native mouse, like, that would be a big deal. And they're straying from that for whatever reason. Mouse is always an afterthought. And some developers aren't even using it when it should be used. Like, 2 Point Hospital didn't have mouse support.
Which is absolutely
Museum,
insane.
Actually. Sorry, Museum. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. I do wonder if it's because Nintendo did not include some way of supporting mouse mode functionality with the Pro controller. Like there was an
Mm.
early trademark for the Pro for something that looked like a Pro controller that snapped in half and you could use, right? And I wonder if developers are just thinking, oh, people won't use their Joy-Con. I don't know about you, but when I'm in docked mode, most of the time I'm playing with my Joy-Con instead of my Pro controller because I feel like the motion control and gyro aiming on those is so much better than using the Pro controller.
Yeah, I adapt from game to game. If I'm playing something like Plants vs Zombies, I'll play that with the Joy-Con. But if it's something more like an action game, I guess the Pro controller. But it's so easy just to take that Joy-Con off the console, and if it's The Sims, that would be the easiest thing to go for. Like you could still have Pro controller support in there because there's PS4 and Xbox One versions of Sims 4, so you can just take those controls. But it would be so easy to put a mouse in there.
Yeah.
And they so rarely showcase it. Like the only feature showcase they really do in these presentations is game share, which Bomberman has for online, and that dinosaur game has where you share the controller, which is odd.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing that they don't highlight the mouse mode functionality more because you would think Nintendo would be courting developers who traditionally work in the PC space to bring their games to Switch 2 because it would give the console kind of a distinct advantage over PlayStation, over Xbox. Because like you said, games like The Sims, those are built for mice. They will never feel remotely as good on a controller. It's
Exactly.
just I've played those games my whole life. I would love to play, for instance, like Diablo. Patch in mouse mode support for Diablo 3 on Switch 2, and I would love that.
Every time there's a first-person shooter on the Switch, if I ran these directs, I would put in just like 3-second clip using mouse mode. Like when they showed Indiana Jones, I would have shown an off-TV shot of just moving the mouse to show that it works that way. Because like you said, that's just a natural advantage of the console, and it's odd not to highlight it whenever you can.
Yeah, it's one of the it's better than gyro, and I love using gyro for aiming, but mouse mode is much more responsive. Like you can
Yeah.
have a better experience with it. It's how I played Metroid Prime. I grabbed like a little tabletop and just sat that in my lap while I played the game. I think that there's just a lot of potential there that's going untapped. It almost feels like an afterthought in a lot of things. Like when I recently played the Bella Bell Park DLC for Mario Wonder, and they were like, oh, you make these platforms, like 2 players have mouse mode. It was the only mouse mode game that we played in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, we got a very small selection. Maybe there's more, but I would have loved to see more of this.
And it's like a system level thing. Like on the menu, you can just put your Joy-Con down and move around and navigate. Like it's implemented into the very being of the console. It shouldn't be an afterthought, but for some reason it is. And I think later this year we're probably going to get a really cool mouse showcase game, and hopefully that's what pushes developers to fully start using it. But I really want those old PC ports or new PC ports. Just something that other consoles can't really do.
There are genres that are completely underserved. In the console space, like RTSs would actually be good on Switch too.
They would, yeah.
So, I would love to play like StarCraft 2. Super old game, but I would love to have it on Switch 2 just because I could have an experience that reminds me of playing it on the PC back in the day. The original Warcraft games, those are all fantastic. Command and Conquer, stuff like that. Yeah, I could go on, but hit me with another. Give me one more game that you would have liked to have seen at the Direct. I'm trying to keep them in the realm of plausibility.
Okay, this is semi-plausible. I would have liked to see a little weirdo game, which they do in most presentations from Bandai Namco. Because Bandai Namco have been doing all those Japan studio games like Patron and Everybody's Golf and Freedom Wars. I want another one of those things where it's like, what? Like, how are you putting a first-party PlayStation game on here again? Something like Loco Roco or Gravity Rush or Tokyo Jungle. I think that would have at least caught your attention and kept you thinking about it after the presentation,
Yeah, I think that we are kind of missing that. Like Nintendo seems to, in the absence of their heavy hitters, Pokemon, Zelda, Mario, leaning into some of their weirder IPs. We've got Tomodachi Life. We've got Rhythm Heaven coming out at some point. I'm actually kind of surprised we don't have a date for that yet. I would love to see that happening from third parties as well. I think that it's one of those, these are, I hate to call any game low effort, but realistically, porting Gravity Rush or Loco Roco or anything like that, those are very, I would say like not super intensive games from a budgeting and development timeline perspective that would probably build a ton of goodwill and would be extremely exciting to see on the console. But you said something. You said PlayStation first party. Yeah. And that got me thinking of one that I thought was happening moments before I watched the Direct, because I don't know if this ever happens to you, but sometimes I'll load up Twitter and I'll see a tweet and then my timeline will just refresh and I'm doomed to never see it
all the
again.
time. Like, you see like the coolest thing ever and it's just gone and you can't find it again.
Yeah. Thanks, Elon. But I saw a mock-up of box art for Horizon Zero Dawn for the Switch 2. And I thought it was real because it was literally about 5 minutes before the Direct and I didn't get to read the actual post. Yeah. And it got me thinking, I mean, that game absolutely would be something you could port to Switch 2. I mean, it runs fine on Steam Deck, which means it'll run fine on Switch 2. And it's old enough that I could really see Sony being like, okay, we've made our money off this. We can port it to Switch and not hurt anything. And we already have a quote unquote Horizon game in Lego Adventures on the Switch. I would have loved to see just any first party PlayStation game pop up on Switch 2.
Yeah. It's a funny one because like all the Bandai Namco stuff is like dormant stuff with no developer, and it's like them like coming in and giving it another chance. Horizon, like Zero Dawn specifically, is like a game where it's done. Like there was that remaster, but no one's really buying Horizon Zero Dawn now. So like you wouldn't lose anything to kind of dip into those more like Western and already existing games, and if anything, it's probably going to push people forward into the stuff that isn't on Nintendo. It's like, if I enjoy this, maybe I'll pick up Forbidden West or whatever's next. Like there is logic to it.
Yeah, there's this idea of gosh, I haven't said this in a while, but like the Halo effect, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, that was the term that Apple used to describe how sales of the iPod got people to buy like MacBooks and stuff like that. Back when MacBooks weren't considered to be very good. And I think that there's a quite real possibility that Sony could benefit from the same effect, right? If they sell Horizon, maybe make the first game available, but not Forbidden West. And then people will want to play Forbidden West. So they'll either go pick it up on Steam, or if you're really invested, you'll go pick up a PS5 and play the game over there. I don't know how much I see Sony actually bringing games to Switch 2, because it seems like they do it where they're contractually obligated, like with MLB, and then with games that they feel are a good fit for the Switch, and realistically they have kind of that dated view of like Nintendo's for kids because the only game they've brought is a Lego game. I don't think they've brought anything outside of that. Am I right on that?
Or Patapon and Everybody's Golf.
You're right. But again, you could argue that maybe a myopic executive may think that those are kids' games.
Yeah. I think a lot of Japan studio stuff falls into that category. I think you could argue like Parappa the Rapper, which is also Japan studio, is a kids' game. And that would be sweet to bring to Switch.
Oh, I'd love to see those games. It would be a disservice to PlayStation to not further develop those franchises, which of course they aren't. And, but I think that it would be really cool to see some of these older PlayStation games back when they had kind of a sense of soul. Like, I love modern PlayStation output. I'm a big PlayStation fan. I play my PS5 just as much as my Switch 2. But I do kind of tire of all of their first party efforts being cut from the same cloth. Like I don't want to say there's no creativity in them, because obviously there is. Games are inherently creative works, but they do start to blend together. Like in terms of just everything is a tight camera, over the shoulder, narrative driven experience. with action elements to it.
Yeah.
And that's how you could, I probably just described 85% of, PlayStation's first party output.
It's that plus Astrobot.
Yeah, it really is. And there's nothing wrong with those games. I enjoy them. They're great. The formula works. But I do miss the days of like colorful, weird, experimental games. Gravity Rush, like you said, is a standout. Games like Parappa the Rapper, where Sony was trying to find their footing before they had what they believed to be a winning formula. I think that was a better era. Like their output was much more interesting, and it may not have translated directly to sales, but it was definitely satisfying as a consumer to have those options.
Yeah, it gave you that sort of like a brand loyalty. It's like you love this stuff and you're invested in this stuff. So even if it doesn't always land, I think it's still worth the try. But to take a break from dogging on Sony, I want to dog on Microsoft a moment because they've only done Bethesda stuff so far and some Activision, I suppose. But just the pure Xbox stuff, like, are they stupid? Like, where's Age of Empires? That's like that's the easiest thing to bring to Switch to.
Oh yeah, Age of Empires, another great mouse mode game.
Yeah.
Where's Halo? Where's Master Chief Collection? This was rumored for Switch 1, and I would have, again, even though that's something that everyone talks about, that would be almost a watershed moment for Microsoft's third-party support. It would be huge to see Master Chief appear on the Switch.
Yeah, they've done a lot of stuff on PS5 lately. Like Gears of War Ultimate Edition, that would run on the Switch too, which came to PS5 like 3 months ago. We've got the Halo campaign Evolved. We've got Forza Horizon 6 coming up. Like there's a lot of Microsoft games which could work, and every Xbox game is made with Series S in mind. It's like it's not much of a stretch to push it out there.
Oh yeah, and Forza Horizon would be fantastic to have on Switch. That is like 100% the kind of game that I really want to play portably, because you're just driving around and then you have like these bite-sized race events that you can get into. But outside of that, you just have like a big open area that you can drive around in and explore and pick up different cars and all this other stuff. I actually, Forza Horizon 5 was one of the very first games we reviewed on GVG after, turning it into GVG, and I love that game. I would adore having some of Microsoft's first party stuff available to play, especially as somebody who doesn't really love Bethesda. Like I don't really love the formula they use to make games. The Bethesda RPG style to me feels a bit dated, and I feel like it needs to grow and change with modern gaming expectations, and it's just not there yet. So, indie seems cool, but outside of that, I just haven't really had any desire to pick up any of these ports that they've been talking about.
Yeah, I love machine games. Like I'm kind of there with you. Like Bethesda, I don't love their core stuff. I love Oblivion, but there's very few core Bethesda RPGs I really got into. But machine games with like Indie and Wolfenstein, they always hit. And it's strange that there's a lot of Xbox games on Switch 1, like the Ori games and Wolfenstein New Colossus and Doom 2016, Doom Eternal. They would be like very logical to update. And Will of the Wisps in particular was a 120 hertz showcase for Series X. I've got to imagine that can hit 120 on Switch 2 as well. That's another thing. There's very few 120 games being really highlighted.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that they didn't talk about East 10 Nordics. That's a 120 game that's coming up soon.
Yeah.
But it does feel strange because in the run up to Switch 2, in the run up to the launch, Nintendo wanted to really talk about how the system can do 4K, how the system can do 120 FPS, how it has HDR, and even incorrectly telling us that it had VRR and docked mode.
Yeah.
And now they're very quiet about the technology. They don't want to talk about it that much. And I do wonder, because I will personally admit, as somebody who covers games, I shy away from talking about specifically resolutions in games, because we're in an era where you can't trust the number that the console says it's outputting, right? Like you have to engage in a certain level of pixel counting to determine resolutions in games these days.
Yeah. And even that is the Wild West with DLSS and just image quality treatment. Like, for the most part, I think you just have to trust, does it look good? Like, don't worry about the numbers that much.
Yeah, and that's an interesting narrative because I saw, and I'm sure you've seen it too, your Pragmata comparison absolutely blew up on social media. Like it's everywhere. If you follow, if your algorithm is tailored to games, I've been being fed screenshots of our own video constantly. And somebody actually, I posted a photo of Diana on my Switch 2 from my desk, and someone responded and was like, it doesn't look good at all, with a screenshot of your video. Yeah. And I had to respond to the guy. I'm like, you do know that I work at the YouTube channel that made that video, right?
Like, well, this is news to me. What? I did see there was another YouTuber, I think there was a Spanish one, who compared it to Series S. And I didn't realize that Series S is basically a parity version of Switch 2. Only the image quality is lower on Series S. I put some screens in our Discord chat earlier, but it's like really jaggy, whereas Switch 2 is, clears it all up. So while Switch 2 isn't like the premier version, it's really interesting to see it's quite far ahead of Series S with this game.
Yeah, I think it benefits from the fact that Switch 2 has more RAM than Series S. It's slower RAM, but I think there's more of it. It's always an interesting question there, though. Like, I feel, and this is something I've been saying for a while now, like, if you can put a game on Series S, you can make it work on Switch 2, which is what gives me hope, for games like Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, do I think it will be the best way to play? Not even close. But do I think it's technically possible? Yeah, I think it is. And in a weird sense, it makes more sense if you're going to, go through the effort of making a pared down version of the game to run on something as weak as the Series S to also target the Switch 2, because frankly, a lot more people are going to be interested in a Switch 2 version than a Series S version. Yeah. You will get a lot more for your development money with creating a Switch 2 version of a game than you will at this point, unfortunately, any Xbox version. And I think that's kind of just being shown, like with Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think it debuted at number 47 on the Xbox store and was like number 1 on the Switch 2 eShop.
Mm-hmm. That's a whole other can of worms about, do Xbox people buy games or do they stick on the subscription? But that's a whole another topic. But I think while I did enjoy this presentation, it felt like an appetizer in many ways. Like there were very few new games. It felt like they're holding back a lot of stuff. And I'm not just talking about Nintendo, I'm talking about third parties in general. Lots of very logical, easy ports, not that many big announcements. And it does feel like they are holding back something for another presentation.
Yeah, it's funny because before the Direct, I was kind of annoyed with the crowd that was saying we need a general Direct. It has to be a general Direct. I was kind of annoyed with those folks because I was like, we have a very good idea of what Nintendo's bringing to market for the first 6 months of the year already. I don't need to know much from Nintendo. However, after this Direct, I feel like they were maybe right, like because Nintendo seems to be holding back the good stuff from third parties for a proper Direct from themselves, right? Because Nintendo very seldom does a Direct where it's just their own stuff. Like there's always some third party in their own general Direct.
It's mostly third party. I'd say it's like 80% third party, like 20% Nintendo.
That's fair. It does feel like they very much treated this one as like a second string list of announcements.
Because I felt the same. I felt like, there are some Nintendo fans who just don't explore beyond Nintendo. And I thought, why don't you give it a try? And then the presentation aired, and I was like, maybe there wasn't actually that much stuff in here. And then you think about it, like look at all these games here. What is actually general Direct material? Like Orbitals looks outstanding, but we know of that game already. It's not necessary for a big showcase like this. And that's true for a lot of this stuff. Like Tales of Arise, cool. That was in a sizzle reel, and I think it kind of belonged there because it's a pretty old port at this point. But there's very little in there, which I would say does like that should like air alongside a Mario game or a Zelda game. It's not the same level of anticipation.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these games we've talked about, Persona 4 Revival, Clair Obscur, these are games that are going to move the needle in a significant way, regardless of how they're presented. So maybe Nintendo does want to have these share space with announcements of like really big games. And I do wonder if Nintendo is trying to perhaps incentivize developers to create new games for Switch 2 by saying, hey, we'll give you premium placement in a general direct if it's a new game, if it's, or if it's a game that's coming day and date with our competition, because Nintendo has to know how good that looks for them, right? Like you can pick this up alongside the PS5 version of a game, because there's a certain credence given to the Switch at that point where it's not, oh, it's an afterthought, or developers are just doing it as a cash grab after the money's run out from other platforms. This is, they're giving it the same level of importance as PlayStation, which Nintendo has to, despite the fact they don't talk about it, see PlayStation as kind of a threat to their own business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And going through the whole presentation, like my highlights, that it's console archives, it's Bomberman collection, and another game I'm anticipating is whatever that trademarked Rayman 30th anniversary game is. And those are all not Switch 2 showcases. Those are all compilations of games from the 90s. Like it's not what makes you say like, wow, what look at what this console's doing. And stuff like Rebirth, we knew it was coming. It looked great when we saw it, but it doesn't do anything really. Like it's like, yes, I'm going to buy this. Yes, I'm excited by this, but it doesn't change your opinion on anything.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that Nintendo has got some great games lined up. This Direct just didn't really change my opinion of the console or of the coming months. Like it didn't really shake anything up for me, other than that I know Rebirth is coming in June now. Like that was the one big piece of info. I would have been happy with Orbitals being in there if it got a date, but the trailer, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's more of the cool stuff that I've seen. I still want to buy it. I still will when it comes out. I just don't know anything else about it. Like it seems very much like Split Fiction, but 90s anime. Cool. I like that. Anyway, I feel like we could probably go on a bit, but we'd start going in circles.
Yeah.
I want to grab a couple of questions from our patron mailbag. If you don't know, you can submit questions to us every week. If you're in our silver tier or above, you can find out more over at patreon.com/gvgaming. But I'm going to read off our first question, which comes from Shellshock Prime, who writes, do you think a company like Capcom will port some of their RE Engine titles to Switch 2 that weren't on Switch at all? I mean, I guess the answer is yeah, they already are, aren't they?
Yeah, with 7 and 8.
Yeah, we've got 7, 8, we've got Requiem.
Yeah, if the question is, are we going to get 2, 3, and 4? Yeah. Have you met Capcom? They love porting things.
Yeah, I think Capcom is absolutely going to port as much stuff as they can as long as the sales continue to come in.
Yeah. Have you seen in Capcom's financials for this year, Monster Hunter Wilds is like right at the bottom, like selling badly. Devil May Cry 5, right at the top. Devil May Cry 5, that came out, 7 years ago? And it's their top seller.
I think you're right, yeah. And then they updated it for PS5 with a 120 FPS patch in 2020.
Yeah. So it's a very old game. That Netflix anime definitely revitalized it, but it wasn't very good. So it's interesting how it's selling so well. But a DMC5, no-brainer to bring to Switch too.
Yeah. And on the subject of technology that Nintendo and other developers are not giving enough love to, please 120 FPS support. I'll play it at 720p upscaled if I can get 120 FPS.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be an interesting. I think Capcom's going to bring a lot of games. I think the RE remakes are definitely in line. If we're getting 7, 8, and 9 all on the same day, you can bet by the end of the year we'll have at least one more of those games on there.
Yeah.
But thank you for the question, Shellshock. We're gonna do one more. This is from Natalie, who writes, Larian has confirmed that there are no plans for Baldur's Gate 3 on Switch 2 due to their bad relation with Hasbro/Wizards of the Coast. Do you think there's any chance of this happening later on in the Switch 2's life, or is it not worth considering for now?
It's down to Hasbro. They did bring Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 to Switch 1, which Larian didn't have any involvement in. So it depends how bad the relationship is. Like, is the relationship so bad that Hasbro just don't want to touch Baldur's Gate 3? or is it very much just they want to collaborate with Larian?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Do I think it's possible it'll happen later? Yeah. And I would hope that it would, because again, like so many other games we've talked about this episode, Baldur's Gate 3 is a good mouse mode game. It would work well. And I think that when it comes down to it at the end of the day, corporations don't care about friendships, they care about money.
Yeah.
And there is money to be made with a Baldur's Gate 3 port.
Quite a lot of money, I'd imagine.
Yeah. If I had to guess, my guess would be that they will hit up Panic Button or Saber Interactive or one of those and tell them, hey, port this, do it for less money than Larian would do for us and get it onto Switch too. Because Larian themselves implied that, there's a chance that there's a Switch 2 port in the works that they're not involved with. So, and of course they would have no reason to know that. So I would think that that's probably the way they'll go. Like they'll eventually, say, hey, this Switch 2 thing is selling like hotcakes, fastest selling console in history at this point. Maybe we should take one of the most beloved games, in recent memory and put it on there because people will buy it. I mean, my sister, for instance, owns Baldur's Gate 3 on PC and PS5. And back when these rumors were flying around, I had mentioned them to her and she was credit card in hand, ready to pre-order a Switch 2 copy, even though she's played through the game multiple times. So, yeah, I think the money's on the table there. So I think that at some point they'll collect it.
To turn that into a two-part question as well, I reckon the new Divinity is probably going to come to Switch 2, and after Baldur's Gate 3, that's probably going to play much like Baldur's Gate 3. Original Sin 2 already had a lot of similarities, but the entire animation system and how close the characters get, that stuff's probably going to be very moved over to Divinity. And not only because Original Sin 2 got a Switch 2 update, but because Original Sin 2 even came to the Switch. Like that was a crazy port to put on the original Switch. And if they're putting that effort into that system, like this should be a lot easier than that.
Yeah, agreed 100%. But thank you so much for the question, Natalie. Yeah, I think that it's going to be an interesting time. I think that we're in an interesting period in Nintendo's history because unlike the transition from Wii U to Switch, developers and publishers already know that the Switch works, that the concept works, and they know that Nintendo's kind of in a strong position as opposed to, how poorly they were doing before the launch of the Switch. So, you've got publishers like EA and others that are no longer just ignoring Nintendo outright and trying to figure out how to get their stuff onto the console. And then, of course, you have, the strong supporters like Capcom, Ubisoft, the usual suspects who are eager to get their games on as many platforms as possible, just already kind of firing on all cylinders with it. So I think we'll see, Switch had great third-party support. The original Switch had fantastic third-party support. And I think we're just going to get a better version of that with Switch 2.
Yeah. Well, when you look at the lineup, like Switch 1's third-party, it was good, but there was also a lot of compromises there. And we're already seeing those compromises become less and less common to the point where diminishing returns just makes it look basically the same at a glance. Put them side by side, not so much, but while playing, it doesn't tend to matter that much with a big chunk of these games.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's a point that I've been making over and over again, on social media and on videos and in podcasts and stuff. One of the key things, because I think people are twisting the narrative, particularly on social media, to say that, PS5 and Switch 2 are the same, or they think people like us are saying that. And yeah. I don't think anybody really is. Nobody is trying to make the claim that PS5 and Switch 2 are comparable in terms of visual fidelity. Like if you play the Pragmata demo, right? Again, just the most recent thing I've played. It is noticeably softer and runs, less fluidly on Switch 2. Particularly if you're talking about playing it on like a huge TV, very noticeable differences. But the key with Switch 2 is that you're not seeing these like extremely obvious cutbacks that you would notice even if you'd never seen the PS5 version of a game. Like on Switch 1, you would play, for instance, The Witcher 3, right? No one's questioning that The Witcher 3 did not run very well on Switch 1. A modern port of The Witcher 3 onto Switch 2, someone would have to tell you what the differences were. You might be able to spot like a texture here and there, or, you know, hair. Hair is an issue with Switch 2 games, but unless you're looking at them side by side, you're not going to say, oh, you know, this is obviously worse. There's no, that line is getting blurrier and blurrier. Like when I play Street Fighter 6, I have to pause the game and really analyze what I'm looking at to say, oh, that's worse than PS5. And that's a game I have spent hundreds of hours playing on PS5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's stuff in that game like there's particle effects like that, like leaves jumping around on the ground if you do a big slam. That's not stuff you're even looking at when you're playing, though. Like it's a cool detail, but while you're playing, you're not thinking about that stuff. Yeah,
when you're in the middle of action in a game, very few people are like, oh, look at that reflection over there, you know, or look at how the lighting bounces off this surface and back onto the character. Those are cool details that if you're really scrutinizing, yeah, you'll notice them. But realistically, if you're running from a zombie or trying to pull off a headshot, you're not thinking about those minute things. The Switch 2, you know, the games, we're getting to a point where the frame rates are incredibly solid for the most part. You know, especially if you're talking about playing in handheld, you know, VRR is very helpful in that regard. And visually they look, frankly, good enough. Like they look good enough that I'm not thinking this is so much worse than what I could have had on another platform, to where the compromises are small enough that I don't feel like I'm missing something by picking up the Switch version. In fact, sometimes I feel like I'm gaining something because I can take that game with me instead of having to be tethered to my TV at home.
Yeah, and that's what should have made this presentation so exciting. Like, it should have been a case of, like, this is just about games. It's not about ports necessarily. It's not about what works on the Switch 2. It should have just been a nice showcase of, here are all the games everyone can be playing this year. These are just the Switch 2 versions of them. But it wasn't that. It was here are these ports, which some of them are cool, but none of them are like exceptional surprises.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you there. I think we're going to be waiting for the next big Nintendo Direct to kind of get that feeling of what the console's fortunes are. And to be clear, I think the Switch 2 is in a good place. Like, we have lots to play on the Switch 2. And while this Direct wasn't exciting, I think that the next one is very likely to be, because I don't think they're going to do two partners back to back. I don't think we're going to get an indie world. I think we're going to get a proper Direct next time. Do you agree with that? Do you think the next one's a big Direct?
Yeah. This definitely felt like we've got lots of cool small things coming. Let's put them all together. I reckon there's a lot more big stuff coming. We've also got Pokemon Day in 3 weeks, which is very likely Gen 10, and that's probably like the biggest game of the year besides GTA.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that one. Pokemon Gen 10 is going to be huge. Unfortunately, we know a little bit about it already, thanks to some intrepid hackers out there. When do you think, outside of Pokemon Day, when do you think we're getting our next big Direct?
It's really hard to say. I can see it maybe being like April kind of time. I've seen a lot of people sort of pitch towards March. It does feel very soon, but also it doesn't really collide with much. So it's not impossible if it's very soon.
I think I'm Team March, and the reason why is because we have Tomodachi Life coming out in April, and I wonder if Nintendo's going to want to get like one final push for Tomodachi Life before it launches. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. Doesn't Tomodachi Life come out near the end of April? Is it like the 26th?
I forget the exact date, but March is the first party game of March is Pokopia, which is also a little bit of it's a bit of a middle ground game because it's a Pokemon Company game. And they quite often do a little first party alongside a Pokemon game in like November releases. So I wouldn't be that surprised if they don't really see it as like a core Nintendo release and just that's the time to do an event.
That's a good question. There's kind of a weird relationship between Nintendo and the Pokemon Company when it comes to marketing. So yeah, it could very well be that Nintendo pushes something out alongside that. I, for one, am very excited for Pokopia. I really want to play it. Got some interesting Dragon Quest Builders-y vibes to it that I'd love to learn more about. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for us for this week in Nintendo. The Direct was disappointing, could have been better, but I think, they're setting us up for something bigger. If you like what we're doing here and you'd like to support the Week in Nintendo, you can head over to patreon.com/gvgaming to find out how. For as little as $5 a month, you can get each and every episode a day early in audio form. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, please follow us. That does something that helps us. And if you're here on YouTube, please consider liking and subscribing. We appreciate you hanging out, spending a chunk of your day with us, listening to us prattle on about Nintendo. But we're out for this week. Thank you so much. I hope you're happy, safe, and healthy wherever you are. And we'll see you next time right here on the Week in Nintendo. Bye now.